The Food and Drug Administration has been conducting meetings this week about a fertility procedure that uses the DNA of not 2, but 3 people. The purpose of bringing in another person into the baby-making process is to eliminate some genetic defect in newborns. The science has been successfully performed in monkeys and even on humans more than a decade ago. Now researchers would like the FDA to allow it to be tested again on humans. Critics are raising critical ethical concerns, saying this is a slippery slope that involves engineering humans and could lead to designer babies. To talk more about this, I'm joined by RT producer Rachel Curzias and comedian Lee Camp. So, Rachel, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the meetings been going on at the FDA this week.
Sure. So the question that they're considering is what's called mitochondrial manipulation. And the mitochondria provides a scant amount of DNA. Most of the DNA in a baby comes from, as we know, the egg and the sperm. There's a little bit that comes from the mitochondria, which is where all of the energy comes from in a cell. So what they want to do, and what they've been able to do in monkeys, is replace that mitochondria of a woman who might have genetic defects. This is about 1 in 4,000 children are affected by these mitochondrial defects, and replace that with a healthy woman's mitochondria. So that's where you get the kind of third person getting involved in the DNA process. So the talks are very much limited to this one process of mitochondrial manipulation.
Right, they're not really addressing the ethical concerns that are being raised.
Right. Or the ethical concerns, but specifically related to this one process, not kind of a broader question of manipulating sperm and eggs broadly.
Now, Lee, we hear that 2 is better than 1. Would you say that 3 sources of DNA are better than 2?
I always like to bring as many people into the baby-making process as possible. So, yeah, more DNA, the better. But here's the thing, though. If we're going to worry about this, you know, DNA in babies in this regard, I think there's a much bigger problem in this country in terms of baby DNA. Idiots are breeding, you know, and we're allowing that to happen. Idiots are meeting other idiots, and then they pump out half-wit babies. And,
do you have a way to stop this?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. We should stop it.
Mass sterilization? Are we going to India? What are we doing?
You were coming up with some great solutions. No, I'm not saying it should be illegal. I'm just saying maybe designer babies are not as big a problem as the idiots running around this country, you know? I mean, why give birth to a walkie-talkie in an iPhone world, right?
Well, maybe people love each other, and that's why they want to reproduce.
Maybe.
Now, some scientists and lawmakers, they're raising red flags, saying, wait a minute, this is engineering humans. Rachel, what other concerns have you seen raised in this issue?
So the whole idea of designer babies, you know, which as this, I think designer babies could solve your issue, Lee, in that people would be selecting people with smarter IQs, people who are a little more with it, rather than people who try and remove themselves from the world as we know it. But so that's the problem, right? People are saying that this is only going to be a technology available to the wealthy, and that they're going to be able to, from here, it's a slippery slope, and anything from eye color to IQ to accuracy when it comes to throwing a baseball, these are all traits that could be selected over time. That's one concern people have. Another concern specifically related to mitochondrial manipulation is that we don't know what happens when you introduce that healthy mitochondria into the gene pool, right? So over a series of generations, there could be a lot of unintended consequences, and that scares a lot of scientists who are speaking at the FDA today.
Now, Lee, a professor at the New York University School of Medicine, he raised the concern that just because this worked in monkeys doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in humans. And at a presentation, he was quoted saying, "What kind of diet did you have these monkeys on? Did you have them on a McDonald's supersized stress test?" Lee, is the research moot without a McDonald's supersized stress test?
I think it's actually redundant to say McDonald's supersized stress test, because a McDonald's supersized is a stress test. But no, it's absolutely true that there hadn't been enough testing. But we like going forward with things without enough testing, as your last segment on GMOs was talking about. We're totally fine. Yeah, we're totally fine with going forward with things without testing. But you know, at least in this case, it'll be largely tested, it seems, on rich people. So they'll be the ones that are able to afford mitochondrial exchanges. So at least for once, rather than testing on the poor people like McDonald's does, you know, who knows what the chicken paste McNuggets are doing to people, we'll be testing on rich people. So.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll even be able to open up a market for healthy mitochondrias. And we could have we could create a lot of new jobs. Yeah, a bag of mitochondrias.
Seems like the options in this could be unlimited.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Thanks again, RT producer Rachel Kurzias and comedian Lee Camp.
Thanks.
Thanks, Marianne.